The animated movie character Miles Morales from the Into the Spider-Verse movie and the Across the Spider-Verse movie. 2 films, 2 appearances, not many appearances, but he's still strong. Let's get into it. Am I the only one that notices that in comics, black characters always seem to use electric type ability or abilities that shock you, electromagnetism type of stuff like that? You notice they're always black characters that use these abilities, seem like. And I'm not complaining about it, but they thought I wouldn't notice, but I did. Just like his comic book counterpart and his video game counterpart, this shock ability, or one could say electric manipulation or lightning manipulation, one could say, is what makes him unique, different compared to other Spider-Man when it comes to his abilities. It's the same thing for this universe animated version of him. He has this unique perk about him compared to other Spider-Men as well. I mean, don't get me wrong, he still has the standard abilities that other Spider characters have, the Spider Sense. He can technically see in the future before it happens, a split second or something. It seems to be something all Spider characters have, telling other Spider people who are also powered too. You know, the classic thing, get bit by a spider. You can tell this spider ain't normal. This was actually a spider from another universe, an interdimensional spider. We knew it wasn't a normal spider by the way it glitches, like how everybody that wasn't in the right universe does. Ends up meeting the Spider-Man of this universe. Unfortunately, this is where stuff gets dark, and the Spider-Man of this universe got mortally wounded and ended up, unfortunately, dying. And he pretty much became the Spider-Man of this universe. So you're probably wondering, oh man, this Peter died, so how's he going to get shown the ropes? Is he going to have to learn it all by himself? Well, actually, a lot of multiversal stuff happens. Like, I'm talking about, there's a lot of different Spider-Man meeting other Spider-Man crossover type stuff that happens in this universe. Because the whole name of this universe is Into the Spider-Verse, or Across the Spider-Verse, verse, you notice how they always use that. So it's a lot of universal crossovers. He ends up meeting an older, more experienced Peter Parker that's kind of defeated at life. And he ends up showing him the ropes here. They all end up visiting the Peters of this universe's spider cave because he's gone or whatever. And thanks to Aunt May helping him out, after Miles finally learned how to use his powers the right way, he ends up getting geared, you know, his own super suit and, you know, web cartridges so he can shoot web and things of that such. Like every character, he evolves and he designed his new suit himself. Probably to accommodate for his growth spurt of him getting taller. Because in the first movie, he was one age. In the next movie, he's older. I mean, he's still relatively new. He's only been Spider-Man for 4 months. He can stick to surfaces just like other spider people. Also something other spider folks don't necessarily have too. He can literally shock beings with Venom blast. Shock you. Like in this case with Kingpin. So one can say he has energy projection. He can go invisible and shock you. But let's analyze how strong he is. He definitely has super strength. See, in the first Spider-Man movie, there was this device known as the Super Collider it was a big old construct to help teleport to another dimensions and stuff of that sort. And when it was going haywire, gravity was going crazy. But when it comes to his pure muscle, he does have super strength and can swing big characters like Kingpin around. While all this stuff was going haywire, it seemed like the gravity works when it wants to. Like, it's a common thing that spider characters can lift cars, even though the gravity was going nuts here. Like, I know this is his web, but the web he uses can catch cars too. Just like his muscles can probably do this as well with his strength. Proof that he's strong physically. What's interesting is that he doesn't have that many flashy lifting feats, even though he's the main character of this movie, which is shocking, right? But when it comes to the other spider characters, when it comes to muscles, not every spider character has the same abilities, obviously, but they all have the standard stuff like super strength, right? So there's some assumptions that are fair that can be made. Like, even if you don't want to compare him to adult spider people, like say if you don't want to compare Miles' strength to like an adult Peter Parker or something, that's fine. Why don't we compare his physical strength to a spider character that's around his age, like Spider-Gwen, that we see in the movies a lot and they interact a lot. This can kind of help you get a perspective on how strong he is by getting an understanding of how strong Spider-Gwen is. It's crucial to note that Gwen's web, in this case with Miles showed that he was actually strong enough to physically just break it. Don't forget, in this same film, I do want to reiterate that she did have help and she used multiple strands of web to do this, along with the help of another spider character. It still should be noted her and another spider character was able to briefly halt the descent of this building that was falling. Of course, this was high difficulty on Gwen's part and they was using several strands of web. While it is true Miles only ripped one of these, this is still impressive feat for strength for Miles to even be able to rip one strand of these webs that was able to support the weight of this building for a little second or two. This was high difficulty though. Their webs was briefly able to support this working together. But their webs did eventually snap though. That should be noted. So for Miles to be able to rip this strand of web, it does imply he's somewhere in the spider character's ballpark, being webs, multiple webs that can at least support the weight of thousands of tons at least for a little while. And if you think this is an over-exaggeration, there's other implications of this type of strength. Because you remember how early in the video, how I mentioned how all the spider characters in the first movie had entered the dead Spider-Man's cave, and he had super heavy weights that have plates where each plate was 25 tons. And if there's 10 of these plates on each side of this bar, including this side over here we can't see, this would equal out to about at least 500 tons. And if we assume any of these spider characters with their muscles can lift up these weights if they had to, this Spider-Man of this universe was working out with these type of weights. This is not counting the fact that each of these barbells that say 25 tons are smaller than the ones over here. So these are probably heavier, but we don't know to what, how much though. So saying 500 tons is actually a disrespect, really. And there was this strength and conditioning room, right, where the spider characters work out in the second movie, where you see like a random spider character lifting all this BS up. Like you see all these different plates, these different spider characters be lifting. Like these characters are strong. He's using his legs in this situation. You know, legs are stronger than your arms and stuff. Further proving that these spider characters do work out, get stronger, and lift a lot of weights in training in general. You know what I mean? Implying that even in this universe, versions of Miles can at least lift 500 plus tons. There's a good chance this is not his max because we saw how spider characters can briefly support the weight of buildings working together. You know what I mean? You know, this super large super collider, it's way bigger than humans. One could say this is like a building size machine. One could say you can kind of get an idea about how big it is right here, how you have to leap all the way up just to get up to it. And it has spinning parts. And he can stop the rotation of the spinning parts like that. I want to hear what you guys think, though. Do you think there's a chance if a piece of a building was to fall on Miles, would he be able to support the weight of this such weight for a little while? Supporting thousands of tons, you think he'll be able to support it for a bit? Based on the evidence we've seen, it's very likely. Briefly earlier, I mentioned the strength and conditioning area. You know this is a lot of weight. When Miles had stopped this Spider-Man from lifting his weight, right, for example, and the weight temporarily trapped other spider characters, so it was like a lot of weight. If we assume he can punch just as hard as what he can lift, that would be like his fist coming at you would be like a building landing straight on your face or the weight of it. His fist would feel like the weight of a building falling on you, basically, one could say, with his punching power. I mean, we know he can punch hard to do lightweight stuff like cracking a thick bolt out of frustration. Like it was during the scene when his building was collapsing, his spider sense warned him of debris. Miles turns around with his punch power. We see him shatter this debris. Like, this was probably Miles in his weakest. And you know the Prowler, the villain, one of the villains of this universe? Miles is kind of shown, even when he was a noob, to push him this hard when it comes to strength. This kind of shows that he can kind of compete with the other spider characters in this universe strength as well. This Spider-Man that had weights that was 500 tons, like, yeah, that same Spider-Man, we've seen him box it up with Prowler, and it wasn't an easy feat for him just to easily overwhelm the Prowler of this universe. So yeah, he can lift a lot of weight with his muscles, and because of his spider strength, this new spider strength also gives him the ability to punch really hard. One could say how much he can lift. He can punch even harder. Most folks can punch harder than what they can lift if you're well trained enough. You know, in this angle, it looks like he's fighting somebody that looks like Kraven the Hunter, somebody with a bear pelt on him and stuff. Mrs. Octopus of this universe, Dr. Octopus, holding Spider-Man level characters back, he can punch them back like that to furthermore imply his punching power to be on the level of those other spider characters. So when you see occasions like this of him fighting bad guys, there's a great chance he has to hold back pretty much a majority of his strength so he doesn't punch people's heads off, you know. All this strength along with his fighting speed, or one could say reflexes, they make bullets seem like a joke because other spider characters that he has to be somewhere in the league of, Spider-Gwen, someone the same age as him as a spider character, has webs that can actually move faster than bullets and they can fight faster than bullets. So Miles should be able to fight or react to stuff like this or better, way better. I want you to imagine for 2 seconds having hands faster than bullets. I look at it like this. If their web cartridges are this fast, I don't see why their hands wouldn't be this fast. They always be reacting to people's webs and stuff like that, right? It's implied he can react to web shooters like he reacted here when the Spider-Man gunslinger shot him with speed. A good idea of his fighting speed could be partly because of his spider sense. He can be busy texting while dodging attacks. Spider sense can help him predict attacks like that. Sure, their web is geared and it's not necessarily their muscles themselves, but you can kind of get an idea of Miles' strength level by the spider characters he can kind of incapacitate for a little while with his own web. I mean, we've seen him rip her web, right? Like, got a little brief scuffle with Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman, and it showed that his webs could briefly hold her as well to let you know how strong his webs are. So this kind of concretes him with the other spider characters, you know. Out of all this stuff, his physical strength and everything, speed, reflexes, and durabilities are impressive, right? But one could say the very thing that makes him unique compared to the other Spider-Man is what also very well makes him one of the strongest Spider-Man. Because even if you're one of those people that don't think he's quite the strongest physically, I mean, he has to be somewhere in that ballpark, but even if you don't believe he's number one when it comes to physicals, his electric blast, one could say, could bridge the gap. One could say whatever he might be lacking, even though I don't think he's lacking at all. So I already proved he has punching power, but what about his blast power, energy projection that he can shoot from his hands, the Venom blast? What's his blast power? Even though it's an elemental type thing, it's implied it has blunt force behind the blast. Like in this occasion, this has to be blunt force, channel the power through him, and just bust out of the web. Like, just because you get shocked doesn't mean you should fly backwards. It's implied as blunt power, he can blast beings back like Kingpin. He even knocked out a Peter Parker Spider-Man character out cold. Older experienced Peter, of course. There was this super strong shield that just regular old punches from Spider tier people. Multiple of them working together, like Spider-Gwen and them working together trying to break through the shield, couldn't punch through it. Miles, one can say with his blast power, one can say he can absorb energy. I'm gonna let him tell you how it works here.
I've been working on something new. Are you like charging it? Oh, I'm absorbing it so I can shoot it back.
He absorbed enough energy out of this shield that multiple Spider characters didn't have the strength to punch through, to where it was weak enough to where Spider characters were actually strong enough to actually bust through. So he weakened the shield that much with his Haxi energy absorption type of stuff. Like, check this out. A Miguel that's more experienced than pretty much a lot of Spider-Man, he's a future Spider-Man, trapped Miles in a shield. He believed that Miles wouldn't be able to bust out of it. So with physicals, he couldn't break out of the shield. Miles's blast could either be Haxi, that just the elemental nature of it counters the shield itself, or it could be the blunt power is stronger than Miles's punches because he couldn't punch out of the shield. One could say his blast could blast his way out. It's a few ways you can interpret this, really. For it to break through something that Miguel was sure he couldn't break out of is impressive. He was even able to use his blast power against Miguel. One could say his Venom blasts are more destructive than his actual blunt punches. Doing this to Miguel O'Hara, messing up his suit's mechanics. Even though it is proven with Miles' striking power, he still can affect Miguel with his hits alone too. So while I do think his blast power is more impressive, he can still hit pretty decently hard with his fist. Like seriously, Miles, if you're not careful with your blast power, you might level a building or two or worse. We saw him short circuit this robot and messed up the power for the place. Superhumans like this, he can touch, tap, blast, and defeat with his Venom blast, and stomp him away. I mean, what would you do if you had to deal with somebody that had the force to punch you with the force of 2 statues of liberty smashing on top of your face or something? Like, imagine the force of all this weight being compiled into somebody's strength or punch. That's what it would feel like if he punched you. But before I get going, everybody, I gotta say quick thanks to the donators. Helps out a lot. Respect Miles, especially in this movie universe. And we still got another movie to come out too. So then there's that. I'm glad you are enjoying your time on the channel. Make sure you check out the playlist on the channel to see other How Strong videos. If you like what this channel is offering, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys later.